Welcome to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Joe is a certified financial planner and adjunct assistant professor at Purdue University. Consider This is brought to you by the Financial Enhancement Group, LLC, where Joe serves as managing partner. The Financial Enhancement Group is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm based in Anderson, with offices in Anderson, Lafayette, Indianapolis, and Rensselaer, Indiana. This show is for educational purposes, and you're strongly encouraged to consult with your financial professionals for personalized guidance. Big Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001. You can find out more information about Joe and the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com. Enjoy the show, and remember to consider this.
Good morning and welcome to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
And I am Sherry Contos.
And Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Big ho, 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 ho.
'Tis the season.
You know, it's, we get into these conversations every now and then where somebody says, you know, you shouldn't, you know, Christmas is not about Santa. And,
True.
And all of the other stuff. Well, the real reason for the season obviously is not Santa, but there is nothing that says being a Christian doesn't mean I can't have fun.
Well, I know.
You know, jolly old guys in big red outfits are a cute thing. I still like the advice that I heard and we shared last week's show for our Christmas presents, something that somebody wants, something that they need. And something to read.
Yep.
At the end of the day, readers are leaders. If there's anything you can do to inspire yourself, your significant other, or your children to read, I would encourage it.
Okay, now you said books. Oh, no, something to read. Okay, because the reason I'm saying that is because a big thing right now is adult coloring books. And I am buying...
I've heard that.
I'm buying them for my kids, all of my grown kids.
I have yet to see one.
Oh, they're cool.
Probably...
you would be amazed.
I'm sure it would.
Right, folks?
Doesn't take a lot to
send an email.
It doesn't, you know, it is a changing world. They're, you know, one of it's not a personality test, but it's a mind test of how our minds work. There's a company called Kolbe, and I'm a big proponent of the Kolbe test.
Really?
And there is one of the characteristics of people who are always making those little boxes. Or
they doodle like that.
They doodle in.
What is that? Because I do that. Is that a bad thing?
Form. It's just a way that some people process information. They're actually trapping thoughts into each of those little boxes. So to somebody who like me, who's a speaker, who wants to engage your attention, when you're drawing, it's irritating.
Right.
At the same time, because we know what we know, you're actually learning, and so you know there can be some.
It's a sign of intelligence.
There can be some value to it, but. Anyhow, enough with that stuff. The bottom line is, have a very Merry Christmas. Enjoy this week. Enjoy the time with your family and your friends. And you know, we always try to do stuff for people that don't have those family or friends.
Right. Oh, that's a great thing.
And it's you know, it's an important time of the year to be able to share and to give.
Right.
But you are listening to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark. I'm a certified financial planner and a managing partner at the Financial Enhancement Group. What we try to do this show, Sherry and I kind of go a little bit back and forth, giving you a little bit of information and insight on things that you might be able to do to improve your financial life.
Yes.
We are here to help. If you have a question that you would like to hear us address on the show, you can email me at considerthis@yourlifeafterwork.com. If you'd like to sit down and check and make sure that your money's in the right order, and sit down and have a cup of coffee with myself or one of our advisors, you can give us a call at 800-928-4001. Again, that email thing works really well. Also, consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. Got to take a break, but Sherry and I will be right back. Consider This with Big Joe Clark is brought to you by the Financial Enhancement Group, a Hoosier-based registered investment advisory with more than $150 million under management. The Financial Enhancement Group serves clients in 25 states and proudly takes care of people who don't want to worry about their own money. You can find out more about the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com or reach any one of our 4 Central Indiana offices at 1-800-928-4001. Your Life After Work. That's what it's all about. Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
Happy to have you along.
Sure.
You know, we're
one of those things that I used to have a football coach that would say, you just wind him up and let him go. And, so I'm getting ready to wind you up, Sherry.
No.
There's been a change.
There's
been a change.
In like what? IRS code?
A new type of retirement concept, if you will, that was introduced back in July of 2014. It takes time for these things to kind of go through the system, if you will. We did a segment on the show about these without having a lot of information or guidance into them. A year and a half later, we got a little bit more to be able to go on now. So here's the big question, Sherry. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you afraid of running out of money at retirement?
Yes, I think everybody is.
Where does that income come from? I think it is something that challenges a lot of people. There is the initials are QLAC. If you see that, if you're one of those people that like to read, QLAC, right? Stands for Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract. A QLAC.
Okay. Who's the contract with?
An insurance company.
Anytime
you hear the word annuity,
okay.
Only a life insurance company can do annuities or life insurance policies.
Sure. Got it.
Now, you can do a private annuity with a family person or, with the university where they're giving you a type of charitable type of an annuity that you may have ran across. But when you look at these retirement ones, that's where they're coming from. Right? So we have a couple challenges that people have to endure at retirement time. One of those is, what if I outlive my money? What if I outkick my coverage, as they would say in football? What if I have put money in and it's not enough? That's one problem. Second problem is another thing that's referred to as required minimum distributions. You hear me talk a lot about that because it really messes with people's tax returns, especially here in East Central Indiana. I should say Central Indiana now, because Lafayette's probably not on the east side. Neither are my friends in Lebanon or it's part of the deal. But the QLAC, the Qualified Longevity Annuity Contract, was introduced back in July of 2014. There are maybe 12 or 13 companies that are issuing these insurance contracts now.
Okay.
But what it lets you do in a very simple manner is take some of your retirement account, no more than 25% of what you have saved, and no more than $125,000. That's on the Department of Labor rule, and you can buy a QLAC, and what that is going to let you defer taking required minimum distributions, and it's going to let you defer some of your income until age 85, so that you can live off of more money today. You can assume a higher rate of return today, if you would, so that you can get more income today, because this is going to take care of you at age 85 if you happen to still be around and still kicking.
Yeah.
There's an income stream that's coming.
So back up. The reason they are making this legal possible is to give you more security that the money will be there, or to give you more time to make more money, or what?
More income. I've said before, this is year 27 in the industry for me.
Okay.
And as a legal fiduciary, and you'll recall, that means I have to treat your money as if it were my money, and we were in the same situation, right?
Yep.
So I have to worry every morning when I wake up, and the battle that the Financial Enhancement Group wages is to help people control risk and volatility, fees and expenses, taxes, both today and tomorrow, and making sure they get a real return. That's our job. That's the job of a fiduciary.
Right.
And in the past, there were pension plans. And you would have people like me and Adam and Andrew hidden behind a wall. You would never see us. We would just send you a check. And obviously, as a fiduciary in that case, I wasn't responsible for your taxes, just responsible for making sure that you got that check as long as God left you here on the planet, that money was coming in the door and that you didn't have to worry about it.
Right.
Well, around 1980, we started to move away from defined pension plans and move toward these things called defined contribution plans. Defined contribution distribution plans are 401ks, 403bs, things of that choice with investment options inside of it. And Sherry, unbeknownst to you, without really thinking about it, they gave you my job. Now, they didn't
in terms of responsibility.
Yeah, they didn't give you the credentials or the education or the training. Remember, there's that natural predisposition to believe that we should all be able to take care of our own money.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, we all want to be the pilot until it's time to land.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like, well, this was cool for a while.
Yeah.
And as long as it's working, life's good. Yeah. It's when it doesn't work that you kind of scratch your noodle and you go, okay, Houston, we may have a problem here, right? And so we continuously, and I say we, the Department of Labor, the SEC, the White House, continuously tries to do things to improve the situation without making, if you will, major changes. And when we look at the studies, 57% of CPAs and financial planners, certified financial planners, said that their clients' top retirement concern is running out of money. And that was according to a study conducted by the American Institute of CPAs. And it's true. Now, we all know the number one thing stated in the Bible, right, is don't be afraid.
The most often stated,
they don't be afraid, right? We know that fear, the breakdown, if you will, is false evidence appearing real, right? The reality is most people aren't going to run out of money who correctly saved for retirement. Right now, not everybody correctly saves, but the people who follow that roadmap of success are not, for the most part, not going to run out of money. Their problems come in the form of the required minimum distributions, and I've saved the money. Now, how do I go about getting the money out? Right?
Yeah.
And what a QLAC lets you do, let's say you're 60 years old, right? 85 is 25 years away, right? Okay. It's a long time.
Right.
We don't know what the future holds.
No.
What the IRS is saying is, hey, you can take some of your money, up to $125,000, depending on the situation. You can buy this annuity contract, and the growth on that money, because it's income driven at age 85, is going to be greater than what most people could get, certainly in a bank account, and even to a large degree in an investment account. And your return on that from an income standpoint at age 85 is much greater than what you could safely presume you were going to grow your money every year, between now and then.
Okay.
And because you don't have to take the required minimum distributions till then, it makes your Social Security and other parts of your life less taxable today. A lot of viable reasons to consider it.
Are people doing that? Are people actually considering it?
They are. There's only one company so far that is helping people in the 401k environment. But there's, like I said, 12 or 13 companies that are helping people on the outside of the IRA type programs to be able to go in and to make these elections.
So is this something that you guys here at FEG consider?
It is. We've talked to a couple people about them. We get paid to manage money.
Sure.
I do the financial planning part because I think it's the right thing to do. I'm kind of, it's my baby, if you will.
Sure. Yeah.
So we do the retirement planning, the financial planning, actually as a courtesy. Our revenue stream, what we're paid for, comes from managing money.
Yeah.
So when we put money into a QLAC, that's money we're no longer managing. It's an insurance company.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's a little bit of a different way for us to go. The reality is, however, as a fiduciary, it is our job to treat your money as if it were our money and we were in the same situation.
Yeah.
And for a few of our clients, we have sit down and said, this is probably in your best interest to consider when you finally separate from service or retire.
Yeah.
Especially for some reason or another, I wind up with a lot of families that don't have beneficiaries or heirs.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have children, this really makes a lot of sense. You're able to put the money into a contract.
Yeah.
And if you happen to predecease the time before it starts, you get the money back. Mm-hmm. If you use the money and you haven't used it all, you get back what wasn't used. All you've essentially traded in order to do this is the growth that you would have had in the money between now and then. And again, the income stream is rather impressive when we run it through the overall system of the way that it does. So, Adam and I have had, and Adam, again, if you don't know that name, is our chief investment strategist. He's been here with me, I think, 13 years at the Financial Enhancement Group now. And when we do the planning and go through the planning team and look at people's numbers, there are just some reasons where this makes sense. And there is no one thing that's out there that is an absolute yes for
everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah.
I think everybody absolutely deserves and needs a fiduciary. I don't think that everybody absolutely needs to be in a growth model, to be in a conservative model. I don't think everybody needs to have a Roth IRA or doesn't need to have I think different situations, different scenarios need to be packaged in different ways.
People,
so please don't take this as Joe said. Everybody needs a QLAC, because that is not true. It is something that is new, and we all know, Sherry, you get all wound up.
I do, because I don't like this new stuff usually, but this one sounds kind of like a good idea.
There's a new option out there. You didn't know about it. I didn't. I wanted you to be able to say you heard it here first.
Okay, well, I can.
Hey, you're listening to Consider This. Joe Clark, Sherry Contos. You got a question or comment, shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. We are here to help. In the meantime, I got to take a break.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different result. Without tax planning during the year, that hope strategy simply won't work out. The Financial Enhancement Group can work with your CPA during the year to help minimize taxes in April by working with charitable gifting strategies, Roth conversions, and family transfers. The Financial Enhancement Group can improve your life after work. Call the Financial Enhancement Group at 800-928-4001. They can help you, and they welcome your call.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
And we are darn tickled and honored to have you guys along.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different things that you could be doing with your Thursday afternoon, or Saturday morning, or Sunday morning. And so I promise, if you're listening to the show, that I'm going to try to give you some stuff that is worthwhile, that can hopefully make your financial life a little better.
We should have jingle bells in the background at least. To kind of make it sound festive, even though we're talking.
I'm not going to do that. Yeah. There.
Okay.
Anyhow, here's the point. People often will ask me what books they should read to learn about the financial world in terms of what's going on. And you can, I think, read about a surgery. If you care to do that.
Sure.
I think you can. I'm not sure reading about a surgery gives you the ability to conduct the surgery or to understand all of the other things that could possibly go wrong. That's the big thing. And so I'm not sure I've shared my my chauffeur story with you before, but
I've never heard it.
There was once a chauffeur who was driving around this professionally paid speaker. And, the guy would do 8 or 10 gigs at a time and get paid lots and lots of money to talk. And finally, they leave one of the places, and the chauffeur puts the car in park. He turns around, he looks at the speaker, and he goes, I am sick and tired of being a chauffeur making, piddly little change compared to what you're getting paid to talk. Anybody who has heard you give that speech as much as I can clearly come up with the same presentation, and I just think it's wrong. And the speaker says, stop the car. And they stop the car, and the chauffeur gets out. He gets out. They switch clothes. Speaker says, if you think it's that simple, you're going to give the next presentation. So they show up at this big place. It's full of people. He gives a magnificent speech. Word for word says the same thing the speaker would have said.
Seriously.
And at the end of the day, this lady comes up, and she looks at the chauffeur who's in the speaker clothing and says, and asks this question. And the chauffeur looks at her and goes, ma'am, That is the stupidest question I've ever heard in my entire. So that is so stupid. I'm going to let my chauffeur answer the question for you. And I think that's the world we live into. We have such a belief that if we get information and we get data,
we can do it.
That we can do it or make better decisions. And so we're going to spend the rest of the show. I'm going to go over a couple articles because the way that I get the majority of my data, I read books from CEOs, I read books from various psychology or behavioral finance things that are somewhat time tested. And I love this thing called Get Abstract. If you're a reader, especially in the business book, getabstract.com is worth its weight in gold. It takes books, 200 or 300 page books, breaks them down to 10 pages, gives you the highlight, lets you decide for yourself whether that's a book that I should be reading as the managing partner or not. Oh yeah, and it's great. Yeah. Great concepts and great ideas, and you pay a few $100s to buy yourself a whole lot of life and still get the reading done.
Yeah, exactly.
But the majority of the stuff that we go over comes from various blogs and articles, one-offs, if you will, because things change so quickly. I've got to make sure that the concepts, if you will, are up to date.
Sure.
So we're going to do one article where I don't agree with the author of the article.
Okay. This will be fun.
Because the wisdom and the guidance isn't there, and I think it's blatantly written in a way to match the person's belief that they want to. On the other one, however, this one comes from Wilmington Trust. It's called Issues and Insights, and it was a top 10 tax strategy, top 10 year-end strategies that they thought that you should consider. I think it's very well written. It was written by Donna Barwick. She's also a certified financial planner like I am, and the senior fiduciary officer at the bank. So just a few things. Her number one strategy we talked about in last week's show. And remember, if you've ever missed a show that you want to go back and get, you can go to our website at yourlifeafterwork.com and go there and find the radio show and click on it. You also find our newspaper articles there. Get signed up for the Market Carver.
Yep.
And if you need to go to iTunes to get the show, you can as well. But her point is a cash basis taxpayer. And what that means is some corporations have different calendar years. They may, for some reason or another, end their year in September.
Right. Or June or July.
As individuals, your date and my date are 12/31 each and every year. We are done. And we're taxed on the income when it's received. We may be able to defer expenses in the year that they're paid. So it's beneficial to accelerate or postpone income from year to year that is taxed in a lower bracket.
Yep,
we talked about that as an example
that.
For last week. We talked about farmers or self-employed people, or you knew you were getting ready to retire and you were only going to work a couple weeks out of the year.
Right.
Whatever. You may want to accelerate your charitable contributions this year. Kendra made a change in where she's going to go to school. And so I took more money out of the 529 than I should have for IUPUI. But I was able to take that money and prepay stuff at Ivy Tech so that we're still within the confines of the law, and there'll be no penalty paid to the state of Indiana or the federal government. Thank you very much. Right. We don't.
Which is our goal.
Which is our goal. So number 2, she talked about charitable contributions properly. Amen. That's all I can say to that. If you look at your return on page 1, you will find whether or not you have capital gains that are on there. It's about middle of the page. And if you have a $3,000 with a minus sign, that means you had a capital loss and probably a carry forward. But if you've got a gain that's there, then you want to go to page 3, and presuming you itemize your taxes. If you itemize and have long-term capital gains, your tax return is functioning inefficiently. You need to have somebody who is helping you, and not that you don't know the right things to do, it's just not taking place. Right. So we sit down. If somebody is going to make a charitable gift of $1,000 or more, my team will sit down with you and help you transfer appreciated stock to that 501c3, whether that be your church or your university. By doing that, we keep the income off of page 1 of your tax return. You still get the deduction, and you, the charity, both win. The IRS, well, not so much. And again, I like it that way. With required minimum distributions, the IRS has still not ruled so far for this year at the date of taping of this as to whether or not you can give that directly to a charity or not, and avoid the income on your tax return. What we always tell people is if you always make gifts to a charity or a not-for-profit, then there's no reason to play the game with the IRS. Let's just have your RMD set so that it goes directly to your church or to your charity. If you don't get the exclusion or the contribution, no harm, no foul. On the other hand, if you do get it, then we've already got everything in good order. Now, she didn't hit this, but this is one that I really want to hit right now, and I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time on it. Beneficiaries, Sherry, are not equal.
Right.
Okay. So you may have children who are in dramatically different tax brackets.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
They're not in the same place.
What tax bracket is your church in?
None.
It does not have one. Right? Yeah. So in the old days, you couldn't give an IRA to a church. You can today.
Yeah.
So we had a family who came in this week that we were working and sitting down with, and they had some Roth IRAs. They had some traditional IRAs. It was an old 401k rollover, and they had some money that was after tax. And the way the accounts were set up, the inside of the trust, the church was getting about 15%. Inside of the IRA, the church was getting about 15%. Inside of the Roth IRA, believe it or not, the church was getting 15%. And I just scratched my head. This is what turns me gray sometimes. It's kind of like, okay, all right, everybody get on the same page here, right? The Roth IRA is the best money that you can leave behind for a beneficiary. A Roth IRA may not always be right for Sherry, but it's always right for Sherry's beneficiary because it's always tax-free, right? So you cannot mess this up for the beneficiary. The Roth IRA is definitely the way to go. But to leave money that you've already paid taxes on to the church, as a beneficiary designation, make a no sense, right?
Make a no sense.
This is,
because you're just giving them less money, actually. Less than you could have given them.
In theory, yes. In all things being equal, yes. So the Roth IRA should definitely be your living, breathing beneficiaries that have to pay taxes. If you've got kids of multiple tax brackets, right? Remember that marginal bracket. And folks, stuff changes all the time. Sherry doesn't like that.
Oh, I hate that.
It changes all the time. Right now, the 15% marginal bracket, you have no long-term capital gains tax on, right? So just one of those things to keep in mind. So some people say, well, you shouldn't gift appreciated stocks to kids, during their life because they don't get a step up in basis. They have to pay taxes based on what your basis was. So again, I buy Apple at $100 a share. Let's say it's $120 now. I die and Kaylee and Kinder get it. Yeah. Their basis is stepped up to that $120. On the other hand, I give it to them during life. Their basis is what I paid for it. Okay. Now, again, we're not talking about IRA money here.
Right.
But my point is if they're in the 15% marginal bracket, who cares? Right? Because they're not going to pay a long-term capital gain tax on it, right? And my tax type goes with it. So I may have held it for 5 years. They may have held it for a week. It's still regarded as a long-term capital gains. But if you think about this, your higher income kids should be the beneficiaries of your Roth. The middle income kids should be the beneficiary of your after-tax money. Right. And again, you want to equalize that out. I mean, if you've got 100,000 in one and $1 million in another, that's a little bit different. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
But the IRAs, definitely, you want to leave those right to the charities. They should be 100% beneficiary on the traditional IRA or 401k if you're leaving that amount of money into a plan, if you will, to be able to get done. So gift appreciated stock when you can to the charities. That keeps you from avoiding the capital gains tax. You still get the full deduction if you're able to itemize. Even if you aren't able to itemize, it keeps income off of your tax return, which is a very, very important thing to do. And make sure those beneficiary designations are correct and properly reflect what it is that you are attempting to do, if you will. And yes, I took a little bit of liberties with their article on that to add that point. I think it's something that is often overlooked, even by attorneys, not because the attorney did anything wrong. You came in and you said, this is where I want my assets to go. They don't necessarily look at the beneficiary designations of IRAs and 401ks and things of that nature. Secondly, remember your 401k under the Department of Labor rules has to go to your spouse if you're married, unless the spouse is signed off afterwards. So you could still, husband and wife, you could still have an agreement that this asset, if you will, was going to your university or to your church, a 501c3 entity, as long as everybody had signed off after the marriage, not before, post-nep, if you will, then everything is good. Hey, I got to take a break. You're listening to Joe Clark, the certified financial planner and part of the Financial Enhancement Group here in Anderson, Fishers, Lafayette, and Rensselaer, soon to be Sonoma County, California as well.
Really?
A friend who's joining the firm from out there.
Cool.
Look forward to having him as well. Hey, Sherry and I got to take a break. We'll be right back. Shoot me an email, though. Consider this at your life.
Consider This with Big Joe Clark is brought to you by the Financial Enhancement Group, a Hoosier-based registered investment advisory with more than $150 million under management. The Financial Enhancement Group serves clients in 25 states and proudly takes care of people who don't want to worry about their own money. You can find out more about the Financial Enhancement Group at yourlifeafterwork.com or reach any one of our 4 Central Indiana offices at 1-800-928-4001. Your Life After Work. That's what it's all about.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Contos.
And we are honored to have you along. Merry Christmas, guys.
Yeah.
And if this is ever replayed and you're listening to it again, remember the Christmas season really lasts all year long. We just don't take time to celebrate it all year long. So, hey, we're reading a thing from Wilmington Trust, a certified financial planner, one of my peers, and Donna Barwick put this article together to talk about things that you really got to consider at the end of the year. I like taking stuff that's in print and kind of walking you through it, thinking about what's going on. This was very well written and some really good points that are in here that I think affect a lot of people. And so we've already talked about in the last part of the show utilizing the income and deduction strategies, either accelerating or delaying a payment of something. We've talked about what to do with charity. So now let's get to maximizing retirement plans. Remember, you have the ability to put if you're under 50, $18,000 a year in a 401k. Used to be 25% of your income. That's not there anymore. If you're over 50, you can actually do the catch-up provision with the $6,000 and put $24,000 in to be able to go in. Hopefully, your company has the option to be able to use the Roth or the non-Roth option. Only about 18% of plans do so far. I think it's one of the real sad parts, if you will, of people not understanding how they work on a regular basis. We just had actually a client who emailed me maybe 3 weeks ago and said, I know we fund the Roth at work. What does that mean I can put in the Roth and the 401k? And the two have nothing to do with one another.
Yeah, right.
The Roth IRA, again, you can put up to $5,500 in if you're under 50. And $6,500 if you're over 50. Remember, you can do that for your spouse. So the rules on the Roth are if you have income on line 7, that's earned income, that's money that's been subject to FICA and FUTA, you have the ability to put it in. And remember, under a Roth, you get no deduction today, but it's going to be tax-free forever. If at the bottom of page 1 where you find your adjusted gross income, if that happens to be in the mid-180s, 180,000. I think it's 181, 183 this year. Again, that's why I have a CPA. Everybody oughta. But when you go above a certain number, you begin to get phased out, and above 190 something, you don't get any. You have no ability to put money into a Roth at all in terms of a normal standard contribution, if you will. Your Roth 401k, there is no AGI restriction. If your 401k plan offers the opportunity to put money into the Roth part, you can choose to have your elective deferrals. That means not the match that comes from the business that has to go on the traditional side, but you have the ability to put your portion of the money in on the tax-free side if you want to. Do not feel bad about trying to get that caught up and use it, and certainly do not forget about the Roths. Sherry, there are very few things I can do after December 31st.
Right.
This is one of them. On the Roth contributions and traditional IRA contributions, technically you have up until April 15th of the following year.
Wow.
Now, you'll never be able to get it in that late. But still in March, April, you're doing your taxes, and your CPA may say, hey, you have the opportunity, you have income on line 7, let's make the most of this and use it.
Yep.
We talked about utilizing the annual exclusion. Remember, that is when I make a gift to you. It has to be a gift of what we call present interest. Present interest means, for all intents and purposes, no strings attached. I can't give Sherry money and tell her that she has to use it to pay off her credit card because I don't like debt.
Right.
I can't use it and tell her she has to use the money to do this, that, or the other thing. I can suggest, but it's no strings attached. Sherry has to be able to do whatever she wants to do. And here was one of those things where the IRS shouldn't have sent you a memo, Sherry. They should not have sent you a memo, but things change, right? 3 years ago, if you would have said, Joe, should you ever give a child appreciated stock during life? I would have said no. Right now, again, ever's a long, long time. Yeah. There may have been reasons, right? But I would have probably said, no, there's better ways of using money. Today, that's not the case. If your children are in a 15% bracket or better, this simply makes sense, especially if they're over age 23. Now, if you have a kiddie tax rule or an issue, that's when you have an 18 or 19-year-old, they're not paying for at least half their own upkeep. And if they're not, and you gift them something, they're actually going to be taxed at your highest rate. That's the kiddie tax rule. Yeah. Again, that's why CPAs come in handy. It's so important to be able to understand the implication of that. But I have cases where I will see people who come in, have children who are doing a good job taking care of earning part of their keep, especially ones that are doing internships or seniors at the university level, what have you. And the parents had been selling stock, which they pay taxes on, right?
Yeah.
In order to give the kids money for tuition because they didn't want them having any debt, and that's what they wanted to do for their children. And so now we've switched it to where they're gifting the oldest daughter actually appreciated shares of stock. She's selling it, making a gift to her younger sister.
Wow.
Again, no taxes are being paid. Tuition's being paid. Everybody's happy, and we were able to save $4,000 or $5,000 a year in taxes.
That's amazing.
Just by understanding the code and being able to put the stuff together. Right? Woo. You just got to think about this stuff.
Well, because most people wouldn't matter if they thought about it. They wouldn't know about it.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. Again, that's my point right there.
and I wouldn't know how to get a grant.
Well, yes, preach your choir. I'm saying.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Number 5 on her list of 10.
Okay.
Consider the 529 contributions. We talk about that a lot. As I said, for higher income families, it certainly makes sense. Remember, you don't get the state tax deduction if you don't make at least $1,000. And that has to be the Indiana College Choice Plan, not just any old garden variety 529. Do not mess that up.
No.
In number 6, she kind of, when she went to the last 4, she kind of went to the higher income people. So for some of this, it will matter. For some that it won't. But right now are good times to be looking at grant to retained annuity trusts, things like that. GRATs, the low interest rate environment really creates some very interesting estate planning opportunities for families of higher net worth that are looking at ways to transfer wealth in the best best manner possible.
Interesting.
Number 7, she says, don't forget if you've got somebody working for you in your house, that they may very well be an employee and you're obligated to do a W-2. I'm not even going to go into that. Again, that is a CPA question that you need to ask. Number 8 was the plan for Medicare surtax on investment income, and this one is really, really frustrating. The 3.8%, that's what I call the bonus tax. So you've got the marginal brackets that we talk about. Mm-hmm. So every dollar as a self-employed person that Sherry makes, she has to pay about 15.3%, 7.65 twice on it. So there's 15% there.
Yes.
And then you've got those cute little stair steps that we talk about that start at 10, then go to 15, then go to 25.
Yep.
Well, when your adjusted gross income exceeds $200,000 as a single individual or $250,000 as a married, there's an additional 3.8% Medicare surtax that comes off of net investment income. So not earned income, but net investment income.
Wow.
There's a few ways to work around that. One is to harvest capital losses, and I've shared this story, I think, with people before, but we have a CPA at the accounting firm in Lafayette that I've worked with for years, Huth Thompson, and one of the CPAs about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3, came in, shut the door, sat down, and said, "Joe, I just don't get it." I said, "Okay." And she said, "Your people love you, and you lose money for them every year." And it's kind of like, now wait a minute. Now, you know that clients would not love us every year if we lost money for them every year. And she goes, "I do the returns. There's capital losses every year." And it's kind of, we harvest them.
Yes.
We intentionally go out and look for them. I never buy anything with the intent of it going down.
No.
But my job's to make lemonade out of lemons anytime that I can. And that's just one of those things. If I can figure out ways to reduce your tax liability in a non-threatening fashion, I am not willing to say that I didn't make a mistake just so that it doesn't hurt or doesn't, just to keep me from not looking bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold on to something indefinitely and go, well, it'll get back to break even and then we'll sell it.
Yeah.
That is crazy. If something is materially changed and there's a reason to take that loss from a tax standpoint, then by golly, we are going to do it. And last but not least, you get into the estate plan. You're going to, and we call it legacy planning at the Financial Enhancement Group for a couple reasons. One is you're passing along more than just money. It really is your values, your beliefs. It's the things that truly drive you. I heard an interesting thing at the Financial Enhancement Group. We like to talk about culture, and one of those books I was reading, a CEO said, "Stop using the word culture," and it's kind of like that really hit me in the back of the head. I felt like I was Gibbs on NCIS getting Tony getting smacked.
Yeah,
and it said, say instead of culture, the collection of habits and beliefs that determine how we do things around here.
Wow.
And I think that really pertains as well to the legacy plan. Instead of saying, our values and beliefs, if you will, it's the collection of habits and beliefs that determine how we do things around here. If you give away to charities, or if you cook Thanksgiving breakfast at the Christian Center, or if you do things like that, those are beliefs and habits that you really want to pass on to that next generation. Also keep in mind that family structure can change everything. So, you're obviously very aware if somebody got married or somebody had a baby or adopted somebody, God forbid a divorce or a death of a loved one. Obviously, those things happen, and many times people just skip over them inside of that of the estate plan, if you will, of what's going on. We need to update beneficiaries. We need to change structure. You may have put together a trust that dealt with your kids when they were 25 and now they're 40. That would be a little bit out of date, but some of your thought process in terms of how they receive assets may have changed as you've aged. You may be looking at it a little bit different, and so you need to have those conversations and see if anything needs to be done. Now, with an estate plan, it's not anything that has to be done by 12/31 unless you're making gifts. right?
Right.
If you're making gifts, that clock starts all over. So, had another client that said, hey, we put our son through college. He spent a boatload of money in his 6 years of enjoyment. We want to help our daughter. We wanted to give her a sizable down payment on a house. I heard you could give away $10,000 a year. And I said, well, you could give away 10. Now you can give away 14.
Right.
And it's not just you 14, it's your husband 14. So she said, so we can give away $28,000. And I said, we can give away $28,000 in December, and we can give $28,000 away in January. That's $56,000 of free money that you can transfer. No taxes on her end, no taxes on your end. And by the way, if she were married, it was another $56,000 that you could give. So up to $112,000 if you wanted to make a gift that large. And by the way, I am available. We just like I say with 401k plans, always take the match. Free money is good money. If there's a reason why you want to make a gift and you need somebody, hey,
I'm here.
We stand ready. Hey, I hope that helped. She did a great job on the article. And again, when it comes to reading, I think you read things to get data, but you also have to have the wisdom to be able to put it together.
Yep.
I used to like to say, if you know something and you don't do anything about it, you might as well have not known. Right? It's, in that case, perhaps ignorance is bliss. The good news about watching or listening to the show is I try to give you things that can make your life better. The bad news is it now falls on you to either call me and say, hey, Joe, help us out. We're here to help, or find somebody else, or do it, because it doesn't do any good simply to know. Again, Merry Christmas, folks. I got to take a break. We'll be right back. Shoot me an email. Consider this at your life after.
Are you overwhelmed with financial complexity? Are you confused about how your 401k and your IRAs work together? If so, you're not alone. At the Financial Enhancement Group, we work to make your financial life simple. On a single sheet of paper we call the Family Focus page, we help you lay out your long-term financial objective with the next 36-month key financial objectives. At the Financial Enhancement Group, we keep it simple. We keep you on track. We work together. 800-928-4001. We look forward to hearing from you.
Good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
I'm Sherry Cantos.
Happy to have you along. So, Sherry, here's the deal. I said that, when people ask me what to read, there are books I think that give you great history over what happens in our crazy environment, but they always have the point of view of the author. It's always going to be that way, right? So like Liar's Poker is a great book Michael Lewis wrote that talks about what happened with the credit unions, but before that, the savings and loans back and some of the challenges that went on in there, and some of the real life world stuff that happened. And I think it's a good setting. But as far as reading books and keeping up, even the books that Ed Slott, and I sit on Ed's board, IRAhelp.com, even the stuff that Ed writes maybe a year or 2 years later is out of date because the tax code changes, right?
Yeah.
So we live in our industry off of newsletters, periodicals that come out daily as opposed to monthly, where the data is really behind. And every now and then there's one that I don't think most individuals get, called Investment News. Every now and then I'm quoted in it because they'll call and ask about something. Well, the title of this article was Debunking 4 Common Myths Advisors Have About Mutual Funds. And understand, inside of the mutual fund industry, there is a whole boatload of profitability. We do not use mutual funds at the Financial Enhancement Group. I have not used mutual funds since the mid-90s. We used unit investment trust and then these things called exchange traded funds, which have gone crazy in terms of popularity. I always ask people, who do you think the largest holder of exchange traded funds are? And people will scratch their head and I'll go, the answer would be mutual funds. That's right. The mutual fund manager bought an exchange traded fund and put it inside of the mutual fund. So if you could buy the ETF directly, why wouldn't you? But this article is in my mind written very well by the mutual fund industry, and that's fine. It said myth number 1: the mutual fund is dead. Well, it's clearly not dead, but the large percentage of assets going into ETFs and the amount of money that's coming or not going into the mutual funds and actually leaving is large. But they say keep in mind that mutual funds still hold over, get a load of this, $15 trillion in assets. That is over 7 times the size of the U.S. ETF market. That is an accurate statement. However, mutual fund industry essentially started mid-1920s, 1924. Argument is over whether it was essentially Washington Mutual or MFS, but it started back then. The ETF industry, it really didn't kick off until the early part of the 2000s. The first one was actually established in the mid 80s in Canada, and there were a few that were here in the United States, but most of the growth has occurred in this last 15 years. So, the fact that it's already 1/7, I would say, is a pretty impressive thing to do. There is a huge difference between mutual funds and exchange traded funds. So, just in case you're not familiar with them, I'll give you a little bit of insight. In
English.
In an open-ended mutual fund, which is what most of us have in our 401ks.
Okay.
I don't. I have exchange-traded funds in mine.
Right.
The 401ks we set up for people, we use exchange-traded funds.
Right.
When I put my money in and Sherry puts her money in an open-ended mutual fund, it tends to go to a manager. Mm-hmm. Now, it could be a passive mutual fund, so it could be like the S&P 500. Right, where you already know what you own and there's not a manager. Much cheaper that way, by the way. But it all goes into that fund together. When we want our money out, we tell them we want to sell, and that gentleman or female or team is responsible for getting us our money within 3 days. Mm-hmm. Now, a big part of my challenge with mutual funds for years has been the difference in the expense ratio that's inside of them. And you're not going to be able to see the graph in front of me, but the bottom line is, because ETFs are so competitive, the mutual funds are really getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. They're still much more expensive than exchange traded funds, but they are getting closer to being able to be competitive, if you will. Sad that they had to have competition in order to be financially viable. Now, the argument that, and this is hilarious in my mind, that the argument is the simple average expense ratio of all mutual funds inside of the 401k plan, according to Charles Schwab, and done by Morningstar data as of 9/30 of 2015, the average is 1.2%. However, Sherry, if we use the ones that are used the most, that expense ratio drops down to about 0.68. So the difference between an actively traded mutual fund and an S&P 500 fund is dramatically different. And the bottom line is that trend is continuing to go in the right direction. There's a lot of competition that is going on to try to eliminate those fees and expenses.
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. You've heard me talk on here before. There is a difference between a fee and an expense.
Yes.
One's the price to buy the house. The other is the things that you know you're going to have to pay for. You just don't know how much, and so they're not in there.
Right.
It's the changing the water heater, cutting the grass, painting the bedroom. It's all of that other stuff. Now, there is one thing that, and this is interesting because a lot of it was done by Morningstar, but myth number 4, the Morningstar rating is a good way to pick a fund. We do not have a Morningstar system here. The Financial Enhancement Group does manage money. We've got a model that we have to feed into Morningstar because that's part of the deal, if you will. We do manage money for other advisors who meet with their clients and then send us money. But if you're not familiar with the Morningstar fund rating thingamajigger.
Yeah, tell us about that, because I'm not actually familiar.
They give you stars based on the average return the last 1, 3, and 5 years, maybe even a little bit longer. You get credit for the tenure of your management team, right? Just because the fund's done well, if it's got a new manager, it may not do well.
Okay.
You get some credit for volatility, credit for fees and expenses, comparisons within your sector, etc.
Well, who sets all that up?
Morningstar is a company, and so Morningstar
It's just been dubbed the king of all this.
Yes.
That's what I wondered. All right.
Yes, Roger Ibbotson and Morningstar probably and John Bogle are probably the three biggest inside of the mutual fund world. Bogle built Vanguard.
Okay,
all
right.
Why have actively traded things? The index does just fine. I don't agree with that for the record,
right,
but that's
I know. Yeah.
that was Bogle's contention. Made him a billionaire. I'm not. Maybe we should listen to him. At least it worked for him.
Yeah.
Whether or not it worked for you in your retirement, those are two different stories.
Yeah.
Again, I can throw a burnt food away. I get to do retirement once, so be careful.
Yes. Yeah.
The idea though of the star rating, you could get 1 star, which means you're really bad. Mm-hmm. You could get 5 stars, which means you're really good, right? And what they did was went through and they went all the way back to February of 2006 and fast forward to September 15th. So you're looking at the end of a 36-month period. So we're not talking about day trading here. We're talking about a 3-year holding period. And they're going, okay, if you bought the 1 star, how did it do relative to a 5-star or a 2-star or a 3-star? And the less volatility that you have, the more often you're going to see the 5-star outperform. Right? In a period of time where you have a bull market, things are going well, the 5-star on this chart, the math appears to be rather conclusive that it did okay. On the other hand, the 1-star actually outperformed in December of 11 through May of 2012 by a dramatic amounts of money. We lived through that. One of the things at the Financial Enhancement Group, we don't believe in this year-to-year record keeping stuff. So right. Your statement in here, if you were part of our family, your statement actually shows what your dollars have earned from the time that you got here all the way through yesterday. So if that's 7 years, 10 years, whatever it is, it shows what your average 12-month return is and what it's been each of the last 5 years. Well, I can tell you 2011 was not my most fun year.
Yeah.
It was not. And this chart is kind of reflective. Wise investments weren't what paid off. It was junk and other stuff that was out there, which made the star rating system really not work as well as it should have. And for the record, to a large degree, is what's thrown off some of those numbers inside of the passive returns when you're hearing people say, hey, you can't beat the index, passive does just as well. Well, when you have 1 year that's that abnormal, it can really skew a lot of things. Yeah. If you went back and threw 08 in the data mix, we're now 7 years away from that, right? And most people don't look at 7 years; they look at 5, right? And again, during looking at average return, that's okay if you're in the preservation mode. If you're in distribution, do not be led astray by merely looking at average returns. That's not the way math works when it comes to taking money out of accounts and making sure that you're in good shape.
Yep.
So is Morningstar one of the things you can look at if you're going to look at mutual funds? Sure it is. Does it always work? And the answer is no. The reason that we have me that does macroeconomics, Adam that does fundamental research, Andrew that does the technical research, is because no one thing has the entire ability to say this is what a market's going to do or what an economy is going to do. It is a team with different type of character traits that look at different things that come together and agree on this is what it is we need to own for our families to make sure that they've got the best chance of being able to retire successfully. Again, I think Morningstar is one way of looking at it. It is certainly not the only way of looking at it. Yep. Hey, if you got a question or comment, you can shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. Hope you're having an outstanding day and getting ready for Christmas. It is a beautiful time of the year. Shoot me an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. I got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Leaving a legacy is more than just leaving behind assets. It's leaving memories, values, and life lessons. The Financial Enhancement Group helps families work with their attorneys and their heirs to make sure everyone is on the same page and that your goals are being met. Communication, clarity, and attention to tax code changes are the keys to truly passing on what matters most. The Financial Enhancement Group can help make your wishes come first. Call the Financial Enhancement Group at 800-928-4001. They can help, and they welcome your call.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This. I'm Joe Clark.
And I'm Sherry Contos.
So the end of the year is coming.
It's right there.
I much prefer to talk about Christmas than New Year. It is hard for me to believe that 2015 has slipped by. I cannot in any way, shape, or form tell you that I'm excited about the presidential campaigning and electing that is coming into next year. I wish we could all get along and just get through that part. But it is coming, and any time you have those political changes, they do have a ruckus in the market, and we have to be willing to pay attention to those volatility things. There were two critical changes that took place this year. The Affordable Health Care Act, once you read the bill, was very, very clear, was written by the hospitals and insurance companies, and healthcare has been one of our babies for a long, long time. That fell out of favor this year. A lot of people are worried about the financial services industry, the markets, the banks, based on what happens next year. And then in our particular opinion, it looks like it's probably going the other way, probably more beneficial than it is harmful. My point is, in everybody's portfolio, you need to be willing to sit down, have a conversation about why it is that you own it. I've told you before, when Barb and I meet people, one of the first things they want to know is, how'd y'all meet? Right? And we've been married for 27 years. The things that you own, you need to know how you met them, why they're there. Are they still getting the job done? Married my wife, I date my stocks. That rule can never, ever change. You cannot become enamored by something that you have to keep around just because it was in your portfolio before. Right? Things do change. I hope the tax strategies and the year-end checklist was helpful. If you got a question or comment, shoot us an email. Consider this at yourlifeafterwork.com. God bless. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to Consider This with Big Joe Clark. Big Joe can be reached at 800-928-4001 or via email at bigjoe@yourlifeafterwork.com. The Financial Enhancement Group is located at 429 East 14th Street, Anderson, Indiana, 46016. Be sure to check out their website for more information at yourlifeafterwork.com. Have a great week, and don't forget to consider this.